I would also like to say a special thanks to Sergio. Your presentation could not have been any better to give me a good floor to base on. Thank you very much for this. I would like to try to come up with a few relations also to the conventional agri-based system that we are operating here in Europe and globally, because in our belief, the blue bioeconomy has something to contribute to that as well. Yeah. If I just quickly, briefly may introduce myself, as Ines said, I'm from Germany, from the University of Kiel. I'm managing a newly founded innovation cluster, Bioeconomy and Marine Sites. And in the next few slides, I would like to find out how that works. Now I found out how it works. In the next few slides, I would like to take you into the world of the blue. So blue bioeconomy and everything that's behind it. So I would like to convince you of the concept of bioeconomy as a game changer for economy and society in total. I think that will be easy. Also, after Sergio's presentation before, you are probably already well convinced of what bioeconomy is going to be for us as European citizens. And then next, I would like to show you how to get the blue into the bioeconomy, so everything that comes from water. And I have a few examples of that also in my slides and some justifications why this is so essential and important for us here. And then I would like to give some specific examples of the blue bioeconomy and examples again of how we do it here in Northern Germany with our partners. So I brought here a few snapshots from mostly policy papers or political streams. So right-hand side, you certainly know Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, or this infographics for the Green Deal from the European Commission, first thing to be done by Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen after she took over. And then the other one, that's a national German political strategy for the development of bioeconomy. We today have even more than 2 national bioeconomy strategies and several regional bioeconomy strategies. So some of the regions, federal states in Germany have come up with their own policy papers to describe exactly how they like to see the bioeconomy to become the next big thing, basically. So they all have in common as like a credo, like a mantra. They're trying to bring into our heads that bioeconomy contributes to solving many of the challenges of our time. So in each of these documents, you will find some claims towards climate change, and you will frequently hear the word circular economy. Also some protection aspects, protection of the environment, specifically water and land, but also the role of renewable energies and food security and so on and so forth. It's a bit interesting when a topic like this is being hyped so heavily. You can relate everything to it. And Sergio, you also did this. You can even relate this to the Corona or the COVID crisis if you really just want to. If that's of any use, well, we can debate about this later. A fact is the transition to a bio-based economy is the only alternative to a fossil fuel and fossil raw material based economy, especially for us here in Europe. And I'm going to talk about that a bit later as well, why Europe is so important here. So the Green Deal says until the year 2050, we need to be kind of carbon neutral or something. There's probably different ways to assess this, but it's a political goal to say by then we should be clean somehow. That's still a long way to go. A lot of the things that are usually being addressed, also scientifically, are very technical or scientifically research-wise or transfer-wise, as you said, Sergio. But as a matter of fact, many of the real challenges are related to financing this transition and to what's usually called a fair transition. Because some of the things just sound and look too good on paper to be true, and they might seem to work very nicely in the laboratory. But then when the question is who's going to pay for that, and who's going to do that in a fair and feasible way, I think that's the real thing that we need to get over with. And probably the day today, this event today, is a small contribution to that in general, because basically you, the audience, people, you are here, especially when you are representing a company, an industry partner, a political body, or a research institution. you are the ones that are going to make this thing drive. So welcome on board. Well, bioeconomy is carbon economy. Let's break this down to such a simple aspect. I brought a few pictures. The left column of pictures is the bad guys. This is the thing we don't want to do any longer. Ugly, digging in the ground, drilling oil and stuff. And on the right-hand side, everything is beautiful. Everything is nice and shiny, especially the garbage bin. That's why I put that first. So the idea basically is, of course, biomass can only partially replaced with fossil carbon sources. So they have their unique role. Some biomasses that are very delicate, I would say food apparently is not really directly a fossil carbon substitute. But the idea is every organic biomass that is available on this planet without any exemption can be suitable to be a fossil carbon replacement, depending on the application you want to go for it. So we should really broaden our minds to that first. Every single carbon molecule or atom that is bio-based on this planet is valuable, without exemption. So second, food and agribusiness has traditionally been very strong in carbon economy. They basically invented it, and that thousands of years ago. And this is not without great respect to say this is conventional bioeconomy. And that's maybe also the most precious bioeconomy, because also as Sergio was pointing out, we are totally dependent, of course, on the agricultural yields of our soil to get our food in the future. And we should really be taking very, very cautious care that we are not digging off our food sources for the future. But we need still the other biomasses, and we still need the substitution potential to get rid of the fossils. So the big game now is called decentralization and diversification of biomasses. So it is inevitable to find these new biomass sources. They will be spread across the country, Europe, globe, whatever. By definition, for example, if you look at the example of the garbage, garbage is produced in every household, and then maybe it's collected to a little bit more centralized place, but it is a very diverse and very decentralized type of biomass that has a huge potential to be used. And the most economic driver here probably will be competition for agricultural crops that will increase. So today it is just too easy, probably way too easy, to use simply wood, for example, from forestry, or the example on the lower right-hand side, corn from agriculture, to consider this a platform, carbon platform for any kind of bioeconomy, where basically one would have to say, especially when we're talking about corn or other edible crops, these should really be in the main focus to secure food security for us and on a global scale. So the thing is, a modern bioeconomy will be even more demanded, especially in the emerging industries like construction, the chemical and pharmaceutical industry, but also energy and waste management sectors, which are global players, of course. They are catching up, and they try to identify their future fields of business in bioeconomy. And that means also for you guys out there, now's the right time to follow that development and to propose and to develop your own business cases that will contribute and unlock the potential of bioeconomy in every single sector, way beyond only food. So that about the general. Now let's go into the blue. Let's dive into the water. Sergio also had that in his slides a little bit. 71% of the Earth's surface is covered with water. So 21% land, 29 land, 71 water. That's a lot. We are living on a blue planet. The oceans, I've looked that up on there's different publications on that and different ways to assess this, but a very simple one is the ocean binds approximately 50 billion ton of carbon per year in net primary production. So that is a carbon dioxide molecule being taken up by an organism, for example, in an algae. 50 billion tons. This is approximately the same net primary production of all land surfaces, so plant biomass. So apparently trees and real plants are a lot more efficient per land area than the oceans are, but just because the oceans are so big, we are pretty much even there, 50 billion tons of carbon per year. On the right-hand side, you have to understand, I was originally born in the near of Cologne in the west of Germany, and Cologne has a very beautiful old cathedral. That's the Cologne Cathedral. It's assumed, they never really did it, but they assume the Cologne Cathedral weighs 300,000 tons. So it's quite heavy, big building. And every day, the world's ocean bind as much carbon in biomass as corresponds to the weight of 456 Cologne cathedrals every day. Yeah. So that's 456 times the weight of this huge church building in Cologne. Mankind, so we people living on this planet, all in total, we emit about 10 billion tons of carbon every year. So that's 37 billion tons of carbon dioxide, mostly from fossil sources, of course. And that equals 91 times the weight of the Cologne Cathedral every day. So just from this proportion, the oceans bind 450 times this church, and the mankind emits 91 times per day the proportion of carbon. There's a certain mismatch or a potential, let's call it potential. So basically what I'm saying is oceans, and also together with that inland waters, represent a significant bioeconomic potential that we should use to enable the transition from fossil-based to bioeconomy, and also to reduce competition for land areas. Now, a question in case is, how much of the carbon that the oceans bind do we use then today? So, and I made a similar calculation for that here. But first, let's get the definition right. What is blue bioeconomy? So blue, everything that's happening in water; bio, everything that's happening with organisms; and economy, everything that has an economic purpose or economic value. So production and use of marine or aquatic biological resources to provide products, processes, services to all sectors of all economies. That is the standard textbook definition of which I adopted for the blue bioeconomy. What it is exactly? Today, mostly, very much mostly, it's food, products for humans, and feed, products for animals. On the right-hand side, anyone guessing what that is? Yeah, I actually think that is a crispy fried trout fillet, but it could be any other kind of fish, shrimp, algae, mollusk, shellfish, you name it. All the very nice seafood products that we all like to eat, and some parts of this planet even like to eat more than we do here in the central and north of Europe. And that is absolutely bioeconomy. But my question is that enough? So in absolute figures, I looked that up in the textbooks of the FAO, the SOFIA report, a global report on fisheries and aquaculture. There's estimates of 31 million tons of carbon per year that are used or that are caught as fisheries or from aquaculture produced fish and algae and other organisms, 211 million ton fresh weight in total per year. And that is today what we use as blue bioeconomy carbon sources. So 31 million ton of carbon. Other forms of carbon used from the ocean, from the seas, are neglectable. There's tiny, or by this proportion, tiny little bits of technical extraction processes for carrageen production happening in Indonesia and also some in the Baltic Sea region, but that is nil compared to the overall potential. So what I calculated is, currently, even with the amount of fisheries that is going on in the world and the amount of aquaculture that is happening, even in a country like China, which is very, very big in both fisheries and aquaculture, we use less than 0.06% of the ocean's total carbon binding potential. I'm not saying that we should use the remainder of 99.9, but I would like to put it this way. It leaves 99.9% room of improvement for the development of a blue bioeconomy. Getting back to the Cologne Cathedral figure, we remember 91 Cologne Cathedral equivalents of fossil carbon emitted per day by us as mankind. And of that, we take only back 0.28 Cologne cathedrals per day from the oceans. So even just by this huge disproportion, I would put it this way: we as mankind, we dump so much carbon into the world, into the atmosphere, and ultimately also into the oceans, because they will always play a huge role in the long-term remediation of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It's basically what's happening in the oceans. But we only feel ourselves responsible to take back 0.28 of that. And that's just simply not enough. By this, we contribute heavily to overload the oceans with our carbon. So there's no way we will solve the overburdening of the carbon dioxide emissions on this planet by only looking on a land-based bioeconomy. We have to step into the blue. Yeah, and that's hopefully got a little bit more clear why with the last slides. So let's leave the high fly and let's get a little bit back down on Earth and maybe even underwater where things is happening. So what is blue economy? Then again, blue bioeconomy is above all aquatic circular economy. So it's there to extend our current system boundaries for bioeconomic use from land to the sea. If you have a look at this picture on the right-hand side, that's a very creative artist from Berlin drew this map for us some time ago. This is basically the mind map for us to see where blue bioeconomy for a country like ours, as in this case Germany, or also then for Latvia, because you are also a coastal country and you also have extreme high potential just because you are sitting on a coastline. This is the different routes and the different mechanisms that we as an economic sector should look into develop and for which we should feel responsible. Aquatic ecosystems, that's also a motif that Sergio was referring to with the land use, but for water and for the underwater world, it's even worse. Aquatic ecosystems are extremely sensitive and they are not domesticated at all. There are hardly any cultivated landscapes underwater. The only exception I would make is maybe pond area, inland freshwater pond culture regions, but that's tiny bit of course of the overall availability of blue environments of the oceans. So the use, management and removal of carbon in any type of carbon source must be carried out very carefully and in a very sustainable way. Otherwise we just screw up the main motor driver for our whole planet basically. So blue economy will grow. That's my projection, my personal projection, mainly in regions with access to natural large areas of water. So this is especially coastal regions. And this is luckily the case for northern Germany, but it's also the case for Latvia. And it is probably also, as a systematic view, the case for the Baltic Sea area in general. So this is how we do it here in northern Germany. This is our view on that. First of all, as I said, we are a cluster. We are located in Kiel in the northeast of Germany. We have currently 43 members, of which more than half are companies from different sectors. We have fish processors and also food producers, but also tech suppliers and service providers. Also more people who are working a lot more into the technical applications of different biomasses, fiber-based products, and so on and so forth. And that's a really good crowd to work with because there we have a really broad mindset to push through some of the productive projects and also to implement our strategy. We were quite lucky. We got quite a big shot funding from the National Ministry of Research, BMBF. We got a 20 million euro grant, national funding to do our own projects. And that started also back in 2019, and we are not even halfway through with our projects here. So what we did, because it has something to do with the people who are doing it in the region, and it has a lot to do with the willingness and the capabilities of the partners in a region to how you actually do it. And basically what we did is we brought them all on different tables and different rounds, and you can see there were meetings that took place back then. That was before COVID, so we were still able to really physically meet all together, and we came up with a strategy. It's a simple document, but it has quite some meat in it because we came up with what we think are the 14 most relevant milestones or components that we can address with our expertise that we have and the resources that we have available here in our region to make the whole blue bioeconomy kick off and to make it work. Along that, so I'm not going to list them all, but it's basically the idea again of this circular economy that is hugely based on primary extraction or production of blue biomasses, algae and fish and other organisms, and then the consequent and the rigorous use of all valuable side streams, cascaded use systems, and overall very energy efficient and resource efficient processes involved in there. And that's a lot to do in that, because there's really a lot of individual pathways of product development, for example, that are currently legally or technically or market-wise not easy to implement. But as I said, this is the new fields of business, and our partners are doing them. So we got a lot of projects. Projects have, the downside as well. I'm not going to go into that too deep, but the portfolio of the project shows that we have covered quite well the 14 different topics. Every one of you is welcome to have a look at our website if you'd like to know more about our projects specifically. Just a few highlights from the bandwidths. We got real aquaculture projects, like people who are really doing things directly with fish, of course, but also with mussels and with algae. But we have also projects that are integrating blue bioeconomy components into, let's say, conventional agriculture, even biogas and communal wastewater treatment concepts. We also have that deeply integrated in fish and animal processing. And then we are even stepping into entrepreneurship and business development by running our own blue industry or blue startup accelerator program, Atvērtā. So, but that's maybe a different presentation to be given at another time. So the projects serve a purpose, and we put the money into the projects to get something out of it. And that's not only scientific publications and patents. We are focusing into two fields here. The first is model and demonstration sites. Luckily, with the kind of funding that we got from the ministry, we are also able to really invest. And the first thing we are doing today, it's going to start in October. We are going to start with the what we call the first fully integrated blue bioeconomy infrastructure on the island of Rügen, Baltic Sea island in the federal state of Mecklenburg-Vorpommern in the northeast of Germany. And that's a picture actually on the bottom. That used to be an old dairy factory. It's taken over by private investors, and they are developing a fully integrated blue bioeconomy model site there. And they're doing a lot of things. They're doing agriculture, strawberries and other crops. They're also doing aquaculture, fish and algae. And they're also doing a lot of energy, renewable energy, a lot of photovoltaic and other stuff that integrates very nicely in there. And I think the idea that we follow with our model and demonstration sites really is that they will be producing food and feed and fine chemicals and other value compounds. But it will never be enough just to simply define these kind of biorefineries by their only main products. There will also be coupled products, and there will be industrial symbiosis happening. And industrial symbiosis is mostly relevant when it's happening in relation to another industry, and especially to the food production and food processing industry, because many of you probably represent this kind of industry here today. You have a lot to offer, but you also have a lot of problems. You are today not as energy efficient as you should be, and you are still wasting too much valuable carbon sources in your production and downstreaming processes, where you currently consider this still a problem. And I'm open to discussion for this on this aspect, of course, also after my presentation. That was now just a bold statement I wanted to make to get you interested. But this is really your problem. That's why you are so currently scoring so bad yet.
Stefan, sorry, I have to interfere. You have 2 minutes left.
That's perfect. I got one more slide and I'm done. Sorry, yeah, I got carried away. So the model demonstration sites, we are also going to see at least one that's happening on the water. Germany is a pain in the neck when it's about getting access to real going on the water. I understood that in the Baltic Sea areas, there's many countries that are a lot more realistic about the expectations to actually put something out in the sea. And that would really be an example or where we would, as a German partners, like to cooperate with other Baltic country partners to put some technology out into the water, into the field, and to showcase the examples that are currently very narrow, very much food production oriented, mussel production, fish production, or algae production focused, and expand them to a more integrated water-based biorefinery, blue biorefinery concepts. That would be something where I would say there is companies and people in Latvia that have the potential to do that. And I would be extremely curious to talk to these people who see that happening as well. The other stuff is just, so to say, our fireworks that we put out into society, so business development and startup support and so forth. And the last one is, the problem is in the past, nothing of what I've said has been really new. We've been plotting along with this probably for 20 years or so, but we failed to brand this properly, and we failed to make ourselves aware. And what we basically did is, at least for the German language environment, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, and so we branded Blaue Bioeconomy, Blue Bioeconomy as a trademark. And we will be using this as an open source approach to support every business that is doing something in the blue bioeconomy. We provide software services, website and cloud servers and blah, blah, blah services. And that hopefully will enable the sector to understand itself as a sector and makes it then also more attractive for politics and also for the other industries to see the potential in it. And yeah, luckily I can say this is my job. I'm getting paid to do that 24/7. And yeah, it would be great if we could come up with some specific leads and cooperations also with partners from Latvia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stefan.